Welcome to Is It Covered, where we break down real stories and answer the big question, is it covered? Hosted by father and son duo Bruce and Brian Chapman of the J.D. Chapman Insurance Agency. This podcast will help you navigate the world of insurance with stories, tips, and answers that really matter. From personal to commercial coverage, we've got you covered. Now, let's get started.
So welcome back to Is It Covered, sponsored by J.D. Chapman Agency. Another exciting adventure into the claims world. Just to keep you, just to let you know, all claims are different. Insurance companies are different. The things that we discuss here may or may not be covered by everybody. This is kind of general ideas on claims and just a little bit of ideas or some fun and exciting things about, I don't know about fun, but some interesting claim scenarios.
Sure.
So Brian, consider this. It's evening. It's not quite dark yet. It's kind of twilight. You're driving down the road. You're listening to your favorite music. You're kind of half in and half out, really paying attention. You see what's coming up. And then all of a sudden, right in front of your car is a deer. It's not a little deer. It's a big deer. And it has really giant horns on it, too. And after your holy ass experience, you hit the thing. And, man, it crushed your car. I mean, it crushed it bad to the point where you can't drive it anymore. You got to pull off to the side. And, you know, if it's done enough damage that you're probably not going to throw that in the back of your truck for the meat later on. But anyways, so that kind of brings us to our next claim scenario, hitting a deer. And man, do we see a lot of deer claims?
Yeah, a lot, especially this time of year. They're active.
Absolutely. So what kind of coverage would you need? What's going to cover you for a deer claim?
Absolutely. And again, this is a very timely one. You know, I've worked on a few deer claims here recently.
Yeah.
Actually, quick side note, Bruce and I were at breakfast this morning, and as we're checking out to pay, there was a group of ladies chatting about hitting a deer and their insurance coverage and not, knowing what, if it's covered or how it works and stuff like that. So hopefully they tune into this. We don't know.
Yeah, right.
But yes, essentially a deer claim, again, it depends. It would fall under your comprehensive coverage on your vehicle. So, if it was typically, if you have a loan on your vehicle, you're required to carry comprehensive and collision coverage.
Yes.
Now, they are optional coverages if you don't have a loan, typically. Most of the time, they're not that expensive to have. But
Can I interject something here? A lot of times when you have an old car, it doesn't make sense to cover collision on your old car. So collision's going to cover, like you're involved in an accident, it's your fault, you want to get your car fixed. But your car is really old. But comprehensive typically is not as expensive. And given the amount of deer that we have here, even with an older car, it's oftentimes worth keeping comprehensive on your policy.
Absolutely. And these deer claims, especially with the way vehicles are now, with all the equipment and stuff that's on
Sensors.
Yeah. The cost to repair and replace vehicles is so much higher than maybe a little bit more back in the day where it was like you could bump a dent out, or it was pretty easy to get an aftermarket part and just slap it on there without any electronic components to it.
Exactly, yep.
So these deer claims we've seen have become more and more costly, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. A $500 bumper now is a $5,000 bumper.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, yes, exactly. It's essential to have comprehensive on your insurance policy just to make sure that, stuff like this, a deer claim or any type of, any objects that would hit your vehicle. Let me ask you this. If a tree branch were to fall on my car, does that go under a comprehensive claim as well?
That would be comprehensive. However, if you were driving down the road and you crashed into a tree, that's not comprehensive. That's collision because you actually crashed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's good to know the difference between the two.
Yep.
I know sometimes you'll hear people ask if you've got full coverage. Typically, that means they're asking if you have comprehensive and collision coverage.
Exactly.
I know that they've tried to get away from some of that wording because
for sure.
you might see comprehensive called other than collision now. So essentially, it's the same thing, right?
We're getting into the weeds now, but you're right.
Yeah.
That's why you call your agent. Let them decipher that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, or I guess if you're going online and quoting it yourself, you kind of got an idea, but that can be tough because you don't really know what exactly what you're doing.
For sure.
So, yeah, a deer claim would be covered under your comprehensive.
So you hit the deer, your car's out of commission, now what? you got to get it towed. What
Yeah.
happens then?
So obviously you've got to get if your vehicle is not operational, you've got to get it towed to maybe your nearest collision shop or whoever you might use.
Yep.
And from there you would get a estimate from the collision shop as to maybe what the damages are.
Let's back up a minute. So I've got to get my car towed. Is that covered by my insurance policy?
It depends.
Okay.
The famous saying.
Yeah.
If you have towing coverage and endorsed onto your policy, and your vehicle needs to be towed for a covered claim like a deer, typically, yes, there's a limit to that for towing.
Or if you have AAA, that could cover your towing as well.
Right. And that's something people ask me, if I have AAA, do I need towing on my insurance policy?
I typically say no.
Yeah, I would imagine that's kind of like a double coverage type of scenario.
Yep.
So you get the vehicle towed to the garage. Obviously, again, save your receipts, any expense you incur. And then typically you would have you would call your agent, us, and say, hey, look, last night I was driving home. I smacked a deer. And then we'll kind of give you some suggestions as to, okay, well, let's get a estimate to see if this is a claim that's worth putting in or not. If it just kind of sideswiped and it's a little buff, and the collision shop says it's going to be a couple $100 to fix, maybe that's something we take care of on our own.
Under your deductible, or maybe you've got a whole slew of claims on your policy, and that's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Right. Maybe this is claim number 6 within the policy period. And,
Yeah.
There's a different conversation to be had there.
Yeah, for sure.
But get that estimate from the collision shop. If it's something that is over, what you're willing to pay out of your pocket, then we can go ahead and move forward with getting a claim submitted.
So when you submit that claim, is an adjuster going to come out to the collision shop? How does that typically work?
So it seems like, yes, sometimes they will, but it seems like more and more now they're doing what's called bench adjusting. So it's exactly what it sounds like. Picture a sports team, somebody sitting on a bench kind of observing. So once that claim's submitted, I know that they'll ask for pictures of the vehicle, the scenario of it.
That's where you want that deer fur to be in there in your picture.
Yes, exactly. You want any type of evidence that shows that you've hit a deer. I mean,
right.
Even if you have a picture of the deer next to the car,
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. Maybe there's some blood or there's some deer hair caught up in there, just to prove that, okay, I really did hit a deer. I didn't swerve off the road and hit a pole, and now I'm trying to claim this as a deer claim.
Yep.
So yes, it seems to be more and more that it's kind of bench adjusted. And then from there, the adjuster would determine the amount of the claim and kind of work with the collision shop hand in hand to make sure that the vehicle is repaired to the same like, kind, or quality. You
know what often happens is the collision shop, they get in there, they've kind of bench adjusted it, and they find all this extra damage. And then, that can kind of freak you out. So the claim goes up. What happens then? What happens when they find extra damage?
That's a great question. Typically, the collision shops are pretty good at working with the insurance companies to submit, I think it's called like a supplemental.
A supplemental, yeah.
Supplemental portion to the claim, just to say, hey, look, when we originally looked at it, it was just that front corner panel, but actually it warped the hood so much that a door is affected or something of that nature to now it's all part of that same claim, and that damage arose from that original hitting of the deer. Right. So yes, the collision shop can work with the insurance company and us as the agent to get you that additional damage covered.
So this one's pretty short and sweet because it happens so often. We have a lot of experience with it. And something else too, I kind of tell our staff, just this is a little bit of an aside, that when someone has a claim, that's the biggest thing that's happened in their life right at that time. And to us, we've done 4 other deer claims that day. And I always try to impart to our staff that it's important not to become kind of complacent or jaded. Keep in mind that person that's talking to you, that's the biggest thing that's happened to them that day. And that you got to be aware of that and really, hold their hand.
Absolutely. Something that seems pretty routine to us is definitely not typically routine to an insured.
Exactly.
Somebody that just hit a deer.
And claim adjusters can be a little bit, they can be a little, sometimes cold a little bit, but mostly they're great.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. There's just like any other profession, there's some really great claims adjusters, and then there's people that, do what they need to do and move on to the next one. But
so now the verdict, Brian, is it covered?
Well, It depends.
Okay.
It depends on whether or not you have comprehensive coverage on your vehicle. If you do not have comprehensive coverage on your vehicle and you
No coverage.
No coverage.
All
Yep.
right.
You're going to be left holding the bag. That expense is out of pocket. And again, like we were talking, these new cars, you could be quite up there in terms of the amount of money that it costs to repair.
It's duct tape and wire on your part, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. You're going to be the guy that when you drive by, everyone goes, "Whoa, did he hit a deer? What is that?"
Yeah. There's things waving on the side,
Exactly.
the fenders and stuff.
Yeah. So then would that cause another claim if your vehicle,
It could, right?
maybe
right?
that's something that for the future we could cover. But again, we encourage people to write into us, contact us if they do have claims questions. Maybe there's an
Absolutely.
odd deer claim out there that we haven't ran into before, or something of that nature. So please always contact us about that.
So if you have claims questions, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn, Brian Chapman or Bruce Chapman, or we're on social media. You can pose questions there, or even email Bruce at jdchapmaninc.com or Brian at jdchapmaninc.com. And I think it'd be really cool to have real world claim questions from our insureds. So then the verdict is, as far as covered, it depends. But if you have comprehensive,
Covered.
All right, another exciting claim. Is it covered? Podcast in the books.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Is It Covered podcast. To learn more about how JD Chapman can assist you with all of your insurance needs, please visit our website at jdchapmaninc.com or call us at 315-986-4062. JD Chapman, we've got you covered. This podcast provides general information only. It does not offer or bind insurance coverage. Coverage cannot be changed or confirmed through this podcast, email, voicemail, or fax. Insurance only takes effect once confirmed by a licensed agent. For specific coverage details, please call us at 315-986-4062. All coverages are subject to the terms, conditions, and exclusions of the issued policy, which may vary by state. This podcast does not provide legal, tax, or financial advice. Please consult a professional for those needs. Links to other sites are provided for convenience. We don't control or endorse their content. Any claims scenarios discussed are hypothetical. Coverage decisions depend on the specifics of each case.